What's going on, guys? Rear naked recap, UFC Vegas 28. And right off the top, I'll admit, extremely hungover from last night. My best friend's 30th birthday party. I'm 30 in like two months from now. And yeah, apparently 30 is a lot different than it used to be. But went hard, great fights. I'm going to do the recap regardless. You got to stay committed to the cause. But hopefully in the comment section, you guys can help fill in the blanks along the way, because I'll admit it was a rough stretch. Starting with the early ones, got a better recollection of those ones. Claudio Pellis versus Jordan Levitt. My God. First and foremost, with Jordan Levitt, I know in Dogger Pass, liked this guy, looked good. By the time we got to the Propping Up show, liked this guy a little bit less. And then come Fight Night tweets, moved him down to fourth bracket ticket. So I didn't love him he wasn't a top ticket play, wasn't a second or third ticket, but still had faith in Jordan Levitt in that he's got the jiu-jitsu. I know that he's still only 26 years old, syndicate MMA, full-time in Las Vegas, undefeated as an amateur, undefeated as a pro. He's so one-dimensional, and we knew that. You go back, his striking is pretty much non-existent in any of his regional scene fights. You see him on Contender Series, quick submission. You see him in the Matt Wyman fight, quick slam knockout. We know he doesn't got the striking. The wrestling, he's very willing to shoot the takedowns, almost exclusively the single leg, and he's just not strong enough to physically muscle these guys to the ground. So knew there was going to be issues there. Just Claudio Puelles, year-and-a-half-long layoff, hadn't looked particularly good himself. It seemed to primarily be a grappler himself. So we go with Jordan Levitt first round. Not pretty, but Jordan Levitt does win it. And it's just a lot of grappling exchanges. Maybe he gets the best of them. Maybe he shoots in that single leg lots. Nothing doing on it. I don't know. He's extremely one-dimensional. And the comparison to Ryan Hall is there, but the comparison is that he's a poor man's version of Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall gets these positions on the ground, you're in trouble. Levitt's grappling is not that elite, but the comparison is there because Ryan Hall's one-dimensional. He's going to strike, he's going to wrestling. Actually, he's been working on the kick game, I guess. Levitt's the same thing. It's some rinky-dink kicks, and then he's got a grapple. But you know who he reminds me of personally is Carlos Newton, the former Canadian champion, is that he's got no ground and pound, and a lot of the times in these scrambles, like he'd be fishing for the leg lock and the back would be there. It's like bail on the leg lock and just take Puelles' back. And he just wouldn't. He'd be fishing for the leg lock. Puelles spins out of it, ends up on top. You rewatch the fight. I'd have to rewatch the fight, but watching it live, there's a pile of instances where it's like he can get the advantageous position and he's just like, he's too willing to grapple. He's so set in the mind where it's like grapple that he's just spending way too much time on his back. Losing to Claudio Puelles, that's a big time no, because even though Puelles is getting better, and he did not look very good, but getting better, it's like that does represent that really low level. But I'm the first one to say undefeated fighters need to lose to figure it out, go back to the drawing board and improve. There was a number of undefeated fighters on this card that had to go through that exact experience. Jordan Levitt is one of them. Moving on, Sean Woodson, Yusuf Zalal. Sean Woodson, high up on him. He was a third ticket guy. That was what I was focusing on, was hitting those top three brackets. We'll get to the main event and at the end, obviously. But yeah, Woodson was big for me. I really thought this fight would go exactly how the Choi fight went for Zalal his last time out. Is that Zalal can strike. I don't think he's a primary striker. He's not comfortable striking exclusively for the 15 minutes. And he was landing some good shots in the first round over Woodson, mostly pot shots, one punch at a time, but he has a speed advantage over Woodson. And, you know, Sean Woodson's advantage is that he's 6'2", the 78-inch reach, but his arms are so long, and he throws a lot of, like, wide hooks almost, that a guy that's shooting linear shots with a bit of a speed advantage will beat him to the punch. And Zalal does exactly that. He makes a takedown at the end of the round. Zalal takes the first round. Woodson comes out in that second round, and again, now you see Zalal not quite wanting to engage him as much. The wrestling's not there. Every time he shoots a takedown, it's really hard to get Woodson off his legs, man. They're just so long. I mean, you can't disrupt him for the most part up against the cage. He does an excellent job of fighting his way off the cage. It's a very close round, and I score for Sean Woodson. I'm hoping at this point the judges do as well. I got it 1-1 going into the third, and then third's decisively Sean Woodson. He puts it on him. He pulls away. Not the greatest performance in the world for Woodson, but yeah, great learning block experience. Loses that first round. I know a lot of people hammered the live bet Woodson. That was a move. I think a lot of lines were after the first, maybe the second round, there was like plus 300. It was ridiculous. But good learning experience for him. His cardio looked a lot better this time. The striking, we know that's his primary art, but his takedown defense is pretty solid. And for Yusuf Zalal, opens up his UFC career with 3 straight wins, and now he's staring at 3 straight losses. So we did see the limitations of this guy. We do know where he's at. And I guess my biggest pet peeve with him is that he's such a generalist. Like, his wrestling's clearly not elite. You know, he can wrestle, but he's not going to be taking down, you know, top 15, top 20 competition in the UFC. And the striking, again, he's not going to be hanging with top 15, top 20 guys on the feet. So is he a journeyman type guy? He's still so young. He could get better. He could improve, but it's going to have to rely on the UFC giving him favorable matchups. And you could see a guy like this getting released at some point. Let's say he loses the next fight, released, go back to the regional scene, fight for LFA, get picked up by Bellator, and could always work his way back up to the big show. But so far, I don't think he's the same guy that exploded onto the scene and had a lot of people excited. Fioro versus Tabitha Ricci. Man, people got to be excited for Fioro now. Mind you, Ricci's undersized, takes the fight on 3 days' notice, moves up a weight class, and looked like she was 2 weight classes lower. So you could make the argument that it was a softball opponent and she short notice, and Fioro had a walkover, and so she looked good because it was a walkover. But my God, I like what she brings to the table. Again, 31 years old, she's not your average prospect that needs to go back to the regional scene and improve. Like, she's already got a pretty well-developed skill set. And where she comes from, this karate base, we know how good her striking is. She is so strong in the clinch and really likes clinching up, really likes pursuing those takedowns, was actively trying to take Ricci down, doesn't care about this vaunted BJJ game. She dominated that fight wherever it took place. And it's not just that fight, is that watching her, she really did look like a Holly Holm, like she's got a good striking game. She likes to stay at distance. She just lights you up with the kicks. The head kick, is a specialty of hers. You're going to have trouble entering her range. When you eventually do decide to crash the pocket because you're tired of just getting kicked, when you eventually do go after, she's got good hands, sharp hands, heavy hands. She generates a lot of power for a 125-pound woman, let me tell you. And so that's all dangerous. But like a Holly Holm, if you want to take it to the next level, you don't want to just be a boxer in the UFC. You want to be a world champion. You need the ground game. You need the grappling. And it really does seem like she's come a long way there. So I had the first, even though I bombed the Levitt pick, I had the over 1.5 minus 160. Fight goes the distance is plus 140. That was all well and good. The Woodson fight took the decision as well. This one's the first one that burned me because I had Fioro to potentially win this fight by decision. I thought Ricci would be a little bit tougher. I thought if it went to the ground, at least she'd be able to neutralize some positions. But dude, she was so undersized. And that judo black belt, what judo black belt? Like, as soon as she clinched up with Fioro, it was noticeable that Minot had a massive advantage. And so very exciting to see what they do with her. And I don't think they're going to slow build her. I think her next fight will be, mind you, this was a short notice replacement, but the next fight will be a top 10, at the very least, contender within the weight class, and probably top 5. I mean, she herself is probably already knocking on that top 10 contention. Thin weight class, right? Alan Patrick Mason Jones, this one really did burn me because the read on Mason Jones was perfect, right? Mason Jones is our lock of the week. He's our top ticket. He's anchoring absolutely everything. He's got Alan Patrick beat in every single department. He will easily outstrike him. He will easily stuff the takedowns. He's got much better cardio. His chin's cast iron in case he does get tagged, which Alan Patrick nailed him with one right hand. This kid's got everything, and I love decisions. And I'm saying Mason Jones is going to put this guy away. And in the first round, he batters him and very nearly puts him away. And in the second round, it's like, we're going to get this stoppage, and a fucking eye poke ruins it. So a no contest, I don't lose money, but that now takes a lot of juice off these parlays, which you don't like. He was going to walk right through him. He was also going to catch the TKO prop. This was a in the bank fucking win. And an eye poke gets it. So, you do the tape research, you got an accurate read on it. Unfortunately, shit happens when the cage door closes. This is one of those cases. But again, with Mason Jones, 26, we know that he's got a lot of skills. And these Welsh prospects, man, I like them a lot. They got a lot of heart. They got a lot of toughness. And he's durable. He's got good striking. He's got good grappling. The Mike Davis fight was a huge gut check. That was his first loss. And now you're seeing him reap the benefits of going back to the drawing board, making those improvements. Alan Patrick, he's done, man. He's a freak athlete. He always does a little backflip at the weigh-ins, a little cartwheel, shows up in incredible shape. But at 37 years old, like, again, when you go back to guys that are one-dimensional, that's him, okay? He can't strike. He goes to his wrestling, and his wrestling was always the lowest level guys in the UFC, the bottom level guys that no longer employed with the UFC. Once he's tried in taking down anybody who's worthwhile, like, the wrestling just does not work here. It won't work out the next time. If I'm the UFC, I'm pretty disappointed. He clearly knew he was going probably out on his back in this fight. And then I don't want to say took the easy way out. Like, I don't know what he was dealing with, but as far as the betting game goes, like, not the ideal situation. As far as the fight game goes, I'm sure fans were left with a little bit to be desired as well. And we got Kamala Kirk and Connie. This is the state of the night because I had golf 9 holes like 9 o'clock in the morning. So even though it's probably only like 6 o'clock in my time, I'm fucking boozed. But at this point, Kamala Kirk is taking on Connie. I got Kamala Kirk. He's the underdog. First round, Connie. And again, this is another thing where we go back to the reads. Connie is a wrestler. He'll wrestle for the first round. He'll attack the neck with a front choke for the first round. All of his victories in the UFC, for the most part, have been these quick submission victories over guys no longer in the UFC. if you can extend him out of that first round and you have a slight striking advantage over him, you're just going to chip him away. You'll lose the first round, but the second and the third, you'll chip away at this guy and you'll be able to get the better of him. First round goes down exactly the way we thought. You know, Amirkhani does successfully get the takedowns. He has got Kirk on the ground, but Kirk's a BJJ black belt. We knew he wouldn't get submitted. We knew the anaconda wouldn't work on him. We knew those front chokes wouldn't work on him. And when he survives, that's awesome for me. I'm Boos at this point, and I live tweeted, Kirk lost the first, but we're working our way back into it. And then the second round, like, that's where my recollection starts to fall off a bit, but he's competitive. He's still giving up the takedowns. But I did personally score to Amirkhani. I'm hoping for Kirk, sure. But it almost felt like Kirk is starting to tire. He took the fight on a week's notice. He fought 3 weeks prior to this, so there's got to be an adrenaline dump. It's his UFC debut. He's taking on a guy that's coming off a fight with Edson Barbosa. Like, experience gap is just massively big here. Like, I could see all that to him. And if he's down 2-0 in the third, he needs to finish. He's not going to get it finished. The third round, he comes alive. Looks good in the third round. But, you know, probably loses a 29-28. Boom, we get a split. We get the 29-28s. And shit, I'll take it. You know, I'll take it. This is the fight game. And I think it was a good showing from Kirk, considering he's on a week's notice. He's making his debut against a much more experienced guy. He dealt with the takedowns in the first round. You know, he always kept coming. He did obviously have better striking than Amirkhani. His jiu-jitsu looked good. You know, he was always going to keep himself safe. That triangle arm bar, good God, I thought that thing might have been over. But, you know, a lost shit happens. And yeah, I mean, sometimes you need the favorable rub from the judges. If we got one there, we take it, because we'll get a bad one down the road. That's just how the universe and how the MMA game works. But at the same time, I mean, Amirkhani, even if Amirkhani would have won the fight, and he could have won the fight, it didn't change the fact that he was the exact same guy that he's been in all his other fights. The read was the same. He was the same. He had the wrestling for the first round. When he fails to capitalize on the submission, there's not enough to fall back on. So he's extremely limited, and he's the 32-year-old. So way higher upside for Kamala Kirk. Full camp the next time around against maybe an easier opponent than Makwan Amirkhani. This kid could look really good. So exciting stuff from there from him. Muslim Salikov versus Francisco Trinaldo. Trinaldo, yeah, the biggest thing for me here is that the fight goes the distance, because I had touted Francisco Trinaldo's chin just all week to everybody who would listen. He's 42 years old, mind you, but he's been fighting professionally since 2006. He's had 32 professional fights. He's fought in some of the best guys in the world, and this man has never been knocked out. You know, it's not going to happen. Muslim Salikov floored him in that first round. I was like, my God. Mind you, Trinaldo has been hurt in the past. He's got a great ability to recover. He does recover, loses the first round. Second round, it's more of the same. You know, he's getting beat to the punch from Muslim Salikov. And yeah, I mean, you know, what was it? A groin strike as well. Like, not the prettiest fight, but I don't know what you do with Trinaldo from now, because, again, he is 42, and this was his first fight up at 170 pounds in a very long time. So if he's not going to be a factor at 170 and he can't go back down to 55 and he's 42 years old, you don't cut the man. You know, this just snapped a 3-fight losing streak. So big deal. Like, the UFC still owes him, and, you know, he's done a lot for them. They owe him a few more fights at the very least. I just don't know where you go from here. He didn't look completely out of it. He showed up to weigh-ins looking in really good shape. I thought he was pretty ripped up. His striking looked good in this fight. Just Muslim Salikov's a difficult opponent to deal with. I mean, he's really tricky. His striking's pretty unorthodox. And even though we do shit on his ground game from time to time, and that was a big narrative for Trinaldo backers, myself included, I had a small sprinkle on him. Like, that was the official pick, is, you know, get the wrestling going, expose this guy a bit. But Trinaldo's not one to shoot a ton of takedowns, maybe because he's worried about gassing out. And Salikov's been working on it, man. No doubt about that. The guy's physically strong, and he's decent enough in the clinch that if you're not going to take him down, you got to deal with that power standing. And, you know, pretty clean sweep across the board for him. So decent enough win for Salikov. Tanner Boser, we needed this. Canadian hasn't won in the UFC since John Makdessi, and that was 2 months ago. And, like, you know, it hasn't been a great run for us. Tanner Boser is coming off a loss to Andrei Arlovski. Wasn't a pretty showing. He's the number 1 ranked Canadian heavyweight. You know, let's get this guy one back over. This is Paul. I'm glad I didn't do a shoey bet, because this would have been classic shoey bet between Paul and I. Latifi's his boy. Latifi's quite literally always been his boy. And it's not like he just blindly bets him all the time. Like, he gets good reads on him. So sometimes Latifi's completely outmatched. He'll acknowledge that. But when Latifi's got a chance, motherfucker's on him. And so, you know, he said it best himself. Latifi just really needs 2 takedowns. Boser wasn't going to get back up. The times from Boser, you'd have to go back and watch his regional show career in Russia to the last time he was getting taken down. But when he does get taken down, he don't get back up. That's like the big knock on him. He's a big boy. He trains out of Alberta. He's got limited guys to train with, limited big bodies to train with, limited D1 wrestlers to deal with, you're not going to be able to really, get to that highest level. And even though Latifi is not a heavyweight and Latifi is very limited, all he needed was the 2 takedowns and the top control. And so in the first round, he gets the takedown, he gets the top control. In the second round, Boser almost knocks him out. Boser's got him right beat up, but Latifi survives. So now we got a 1-1 going into the third round. It's anybody's to win. And quite honestly, Latifi just gets the takedown. Now, they could have stood this thing up. They could have stood this thing up 2-3 times. Why they allowed 4 minutes to tick by the clock, I don't know. But that's not Latifi's problem. That's not anybody who backed Latifi's problem. It's Boser's problem. He's got to get back up. You hope the ref stands you up. As a fight fan, as someone who has money on it, you hope the ref stands it up. If I was the ref, not just because I bet it, but like, it's a heavyweight fight. Fans are here to watch a fight. I'll give you a few minutes. I just didn't feel like Latifi was doing enough with it. Regardless, none of that matters. The Latifi move was the right call, especially if you took Latifi by decision, which was most definitely the right call. I didn't really see him finishing Boser, but just 2 takedowns and the smother. That's all he needed, and that's exactly how it played out. As far as where both guys go from here, it's like Latifi can only do that at heavyweight. At light heavyweight, he had a big right hand. He could knock you out. He's got the standing guillotine choke over OSP, but at heavyweight, like, there's none of that. The Lewis fight, he attempted to do the same thing. Attempted a few takedowns and some smother. But Lewis has got this get-up game where he's just like, time to get up, and just stands back up on you. It's like, shit, I can't hold him down. Where Boser didn't have that. So whereas Lewis was able to get back up and land enough to persuade the judges, it didn't quite happen for Boser. As far as who Latifi fights in, subsequent fights, I don't know. He's just going to try to do the same thing. So for the UFC, you don't want him exposing guys. You don't want him taking a guy down and holding him down and it being a boring decision. But again, you got to match him with somebody. And for Tanner Boser, like, yeah, that is our number 1 ranked heavyweight. It's not even close compared to him and the number 2 ranked heavyweight. It's not even close. And you see where we're operating at, right? So got outpointed by Arlovsky in a straight up striking battle and got easily held down by a 5'10", 38-year-old Latifi, a natural middleweight who fought at light heavyweight and now campaigns as a heavyweight. So yeah, again, not the best look going, but he's young and he's a mobile heavyweight. He's young for this weight class especially, so you can't write him off completely, but a big setback. Who you can write off completely, Ariane Lipski. At this point, book shut. If it was a smidget still open, she's all the way shut now, right? So comes over from the KSW organization. She's the flyweight champion. She's the violence queen. She's got these elbows. The UFC pays her a considerable amount of money for this signing. It's kind of hyped up and just like flat right from the get-go. Mind you, the losses were to some decent level competition. She picks up a few wins along the way, low level competition, but there's this narrative that she might get better. Only 27, striking is still pretty good. The Antonina Shevchenko fight, you rewatch it. Antonina is a world champion kickboxer, and obviously the sister of Valentina Shevchenko, who's the GOAT. She actually outstrikes Antonina in those early striking exchanges, first round especially. Like, Lipski does have good striking. The difference there is Antonina just decides, once her eye starts to swell up, I'm just going to take her down. And when Antonina Shevchenko can easily take you down and then proceed to TKO you, something she's not known for, you've got a serious problem on your hands. So the fight with Montana De La Rosa was going to pose the exact same problem. And she does the only thing you can do. Go to ATT and give it your best shot. And she does that. She goes to ATT. She talks about how much about, like, all I do is wrestle. My wrestling is 10 times better. And now that my wrestling is so good, I'm going to be able to open up with my striking. You wait and see. Oh, no. I saw. It did not go good. Again, still only 27. So, like, improvements could happen. But, like, yeah, the ATT didn't actually, the first time ever that they failed to make a single noticeable improvement. And let's not take away anything from Montana De La Rosa. She's been knocking on the door. Like, she actually makes a lot of progression every fight, and the UFC gives her these really heavy set Brazilian fighters with strong hips and big power punching, and they stuff more of the takedowns and bloody her up. But in this Lipski fight, she really did kind of show her potential. And there's not a whole lot of girls of this weight class that wrestle and have a very smothering, dangerous ground game and will attack. And Montana De La Rosa does have that. She's still, again, this is another young fighter, and I do think she's getting better. She's out of Colorado as well, and cardio is not an issue for her. You see that Viviane Arroyo fight where really the third round she's all busted up, but she's keep coming forward, and that's going to be a weapon for her if she can get these fights to the ground. She hasn't been able to, but if they're going to give her the Lipskis of the world, apparently Lipski's just not stuffing the takedown. Montana De La Rosa had that was kind of her coming out party. Her wins in the UFC have been like real low level. And this would represent another low level win. The next time we talk about Montana De La Rosa, I'm sure someone will point out the fact like, look at this string of wins here. But this was definitely a step up in her regard. So yeah, interested to see the progression from her. I know a couple people went really heavy on it. And it was women's MMA for me. And, Lipski's in a new camp. The line was a little wide for my liking. It was 250 De La Rosa. She was the play. We did roster her up. But she looked like I wish I put so much hindsight 2020. It's the recap show after the fact. Yeah. I wish I put everything on her. Like she looked really good. And I think that's a reason why styles make fights. You give someone the proper style and they'll style up on you. Gregory Rodriguez, Dusko. Again, I should have pulled the trigger on Rodriguez here. I had Dusko. I put him way lower. No confidence level on him. But yeah, the biggest thing is that he fights with his hands so low, and he's kind of just like more of a volume guy. You see him on the Contender Series against Teddy Ash. He actually gets outstruck in that fight, but it's just he keeps going. He keeps putting it on you, keeps coming at you, right? The fight with Paula Soriano's just got way too much power for him. So when Soriano started to connect, it would hurt him. I thought Rodriguez would have that big power and could hurt him early, but I really did think that Rodriguez's gas tank would fall off pretty sharp after that. He is heavily muscled up, man. This guy is in incredible shape, comes in there. And when you saw him on the Contender Series against Jordan Williams, yeah, he looks brilliant for 3 minutes, and then he tires out. When he gets tired up, he gets kind of frozen up against the cage, and then his game falls apart. The subsequent fights for LFA, quick finishes, right? So I didn't think he had the cardio to sustain the pace throughout, and he did. He styled on Dusko. Dusko very green. I don't know if this is a guy that needs to move to an ATT and maybe needs to get out of his comfort zone. He's young. He does have some skill, but he doesn't fight the most intelligent game plans. And you're either going to take a lot of damage leading up to these bigger fights. Like Soriano is still young in his career. He put a lot of damage on him. Rodriguez, not quite as much, but had his way with him and looked good. He's a lot more interesting as a prospect because he's a BJJ black belt, apparently a world champion in grappling, and yet you don't really see any grappling out of him. But the striking is coming a long way. Training at a Black House, training at Sanford MMA now, I believe, as well. Like it's starting to come together for him. Cardio was the one thing I believed he was missing, and he proved me wrong. So quality victory out of Gregory Rodriguez there. Shouldn't have been a shock to anybody. Like the line was fairly close, and the guy does have skills, but he proved a point with the cardio, and that's why we watch the fights, right? What more knowledge can we gain on these guys? Beza is your next guy that like has an undefeated record and needed to lose. Similar to Jordan Levitt earlier in the night. It's just he's kind of basic. He's starting with the same stuff every time. So in the breaking down of the fight, right? Santiago Ponzinibio, he was the man. He was on the 7-fight winning streak. He had all these accolades. He was being talked, for potential title position, and then the layoff and the infections and the hospitalizations and the no training time, and then finally comes off long layoff. Jing Liang Li gets knocked out. I guess people are writing him off, but people also like Miguel Beza. The biggest difference here is that the Jing Liang Li fight, Jing Liang Li comes at Ponzinibio. Everything he throws, 4 punch combinations. Combination. It causes Ponzinibio to have to react, the first punch, second punch, hit him with the third. But it overwhelms him. It shocks his system. Because of the ring rust, he's getting off to a slow start. He's kind of a slow starter, and Jing Liang Li overwhelms him and he gets the knockout. With Beza, this is, again, all the tape going up to it, Beza only really does throw 1 strike at a time. 1 or 2 strikes at a time. He might throw 1-2, but he also just prefers just the 1 shot or the 1 calf kick. So in the first round, it's the same thing. I'm on Ponzinibio. First round, we're getting it our way, right? Ponzinibio is getting beat up. Sorry, not our way. The opposite way is that he's getting beat up. He's on that slow start. He does get hurt a few times. He does get rocked. Beza's power. Beza's not really known for, I guess he does have knockouts, no doubt about it, but he's got a lot of knockdowns. He's dropped a lot of guys. Even, the Victor Reina fight on Contender Series, he drops him twice. He does have big power in singular shots. 1 shot will land. That'll put you away. Knocking out Matt Brown is a feather in your cap, but again, it's a advanced version of Matt Brown. So what do you take out of it? I don't know. But in this fight with Ponzinibio, that first round was his chance to capitalize, right? He's going to have a slow start, and he kind of did capitalize. He chews up the leg with the calf kick. He hurts him a few times, wins the first round. This is Beza all day. The second round, for the life of me, I fucking can't remember. I remember Beza seemingly hurting Ponzinibio once or twice, and Ponzinibio backed him up the entire round. The jab was also money for him because Beza's got this high guard. He likes to keep the high guard, but in order to engage, he's got to drop it a bit. And I guess it must have been, I don't know how much the reach for Ponzinibio was. I can't remember at the top of my head. but it's like he beat him routinely with the jab. I thought Pons got hurt twice in the round. Totally off. Because not only does Pons end up winning the fight, but the entire internet, I didn't see one person score for Beza. Not one media member scored for Beza. Not one Twitter person scored for Beza. Clearly, I'm fucking out of my mind. It was a Ponzinibio round, but I have to rewatch it. Out of any of the fights on the card, that's the one I have to rewatch because like no idea. And then the third round, in my mind, we're down 2, so I need to finish. And I'm cheering at the TV. Come on, baby, because Beza's tired. And Beza in the third round, I guess he did this in the second round. I just don't remember. But in the third round, it comes full circle. The one shot at a time shit, where Ponzinibio was heating up. Ponzinibio, I thought he needed to finish. I thought he needed to finish. Clearly not the case. But he was coming at him, and like Beza just had no answer. All he would try to do is like throw out the one calf kick or the one shot at a time. It wasn't enough. He's getting overwhelmed. He's getting hit. His chin checked out pretty good. Matt Brown had hurt him in that fight, and he didn't go down, or he didn't get knocked out anyways. The Ponzinibio fight, same thing. He did get hurt a couple times throughout the course of that third round, maybe the second round again. You hit me up in the comment section. Clearly, this is the one I was getting. It was all downhill from this point of the night. But yeah. So glad when I got the decision, I was like, shit, judges gave me a favor, but I guess we earned it fair and square. So I'm happy with that. Ponzinibio did look slower. That was one of the things. Him from the 7-fight win streak to him now, he's a slower guy. He's a couple months removed from his 35th birthday, but this is a very critical victory for him. You lose to Beza, an up-and-comer with a 10-0 record. Beza started fighting pro. Ponzinibio was already 5 fights deep in the UFC and already fought on The Ultimate Fighter, was 4-0 in The Ultimate Fighter, 22 pro fights. Like, you don't, if you're still relevant, you still want to compete at the top 10 level, you still want to get paid the big bucks for the good matchups, you cannot lose this fight to the up-and-comer. Beza, this does nothing to Beza. Stock does not affect him. He's still young. He just fought a gangster in Santiago Ponzinibio, won the first round. I thought at least competitive in the second round, even though he obviously lost it, I guess. It doesn't hurt him, but he needs to shore up his game a little bit. Like the one shot at a time, I guess it could work. Ponzinibio is a beast, so that calf kick in that right hand would knock out a lesser man, probably finish out a lesser man. But if he wants to advance to the next level, he's going to have to add a little bit more to it, because eventually it becomes predictable, and eventually they figure it out. So quality victory for Santiago. That was another dog play that we had this week. So I think this card, it was 14 fights. Breeze, my God, Tom Breeze. Breeze gets canceled. I'm glad he didn't fight because I had him. So, I would not, if that was the case, like I wouldn't have wanted to be on that side. So we ended up with a 13 fight. Then we got a no contest from the Jones fight, and we're going 6-6. So not a great night. The top end of the ticket is what mattered. That ended up being okay. But yeah, the read on Santiago, great as a dog play. I took a Scerapoli dog play against Roman Delites, and it wasn't to be. Roman Delites just, I know I always talk about that Bellator fight a couple weeks back now, John Phillips, where it's like he literally just gets held in the one position, but there's nothing you can do about it. You can't get out of the one wrestling position. You're going to lose the round. Roman Delites is the natural. He fought at heavyweight, or he grappled as a heavyweight. He fought in the UFC twice as a light heavyweight. He's now as a middleweight, and he's a big, thick dude. And you got Scerapoli, who's a welterweight, moving up to 185. We knew the size advantage would be huge for Roman Delites. We knew the grappling advantage would be there for Roman Delites. The thing is, Sceраpoli's got a really good get-up game, very hard to hold him down, and he had the striking advantage. Both those things proved to be true. When Delites would take him down, he got right back up. And when the fight was standing, he won the exchanges. But that was it. Delites easily just pressed him up against the cage, and then he couldn't go anywhere. He had that rear waist body lock for the entire fight, man. Like nothing happened. So I know that's frustrating for Scerapoli. The UFC is going to have to match him up with guys that can actually strike or will engage him, and then he could have some fun fights. But I think we know his limitations. And for Delites, dude, he's a strong physical powerhouse. As a middleweight, he could continue to get better. He's at Extreme Couture with Eric Nixick now. Like, he could add different elements to his game, but like if you want to be Khabib, like those positions, those smothering positions, it's got to be rinse and repeat. Dump him, let him get back up, dump him back down, let him get back up, dump back down, add the ground and pound, add the submissions. Delites can do all that stuff. But for a guy that's vaunted for his grappling, he's got no real top pressure. Like once he gets you to the ground, there's just not enough there. Physically, he's a beast. His cardio looked good here. He gets the victory, and I guess that's the main thing. I just don't know how many fans you build from that. He had built his whole thing on like shit-eating wild man, right? He's coach, you want me to submit this guy? Dropping on a heel hook. Like who does that? Guys throwing spinning back fists. Like guys going out there and entertaining. and he took the safe way out. But the safe way is the way to get 2 checks, and that's what he got. He got his show money and got his win bonus. Unfortunately for Scerapoli, he got a frustrating night out of it. Tyboro versus Walt Harris. Yeah, the under 2.5 for anybody to listen to that one was the way to go. Like, Walt Harris is Walt Harris, and I do feel for the guy. Personal tragedy, and then the UFC does him no favors. He drives Alistair Overeem, a former chat. The guy's a champion in pretty much almost every organization he's been with outside of the UFC. He's a perennial top guy. It's a headlining fight. You draw Alexander Volkov. He's a top 4 heavyweight in the world. He's getting pretty close to a title shot currently. And then to rebound off those back-to-back losses as a 37-year-old who really just needs a little confidence. He just needs a little shot in the arm. Maybe just a 1 tune-up and then throw him back in against the Wolves. But just needs one thing in his life to be positive for a change. And what do? You give him Marcin Tybura. Streaking. 5-fight winning streak now. Comes in good shape. Just showed in the Greg Hardy fight that, man, maybe his chin's not as bad as we all thought. Can take a punch. Cardio, good. Body kick on point. Mobile heavyweight. Gamer. I got a theory, greasy theory, but Jan Blachowicz must have given him one of those hangman bracelets because both of their runs coincide with each other. Like, this guy went 4-0 in 2020 alone. Blachowicz came out of left field, wins a world title. Tybura essentially comes out of left field. Dude got knocked out by Shamil Abdurakhimov. And got knocked out by Augusto Sakai in 59 seconds. It's looking over for him. And now he's on a 5-fight winning streak, positions himself probably within that top 6, and certainly a viable guy that could have a title shot, one more fight against a top guy, and then viable to jump into that spot. Like, things going extremely good for Marcin Tybura. Things not going for Walt Harris. The UFC does Walt dirty like that. Over a $75,000 and 75 and 75. Like, you didn't want to pay him the $150,000 to just beat up a Putz one time. Doesn't matter. But with Walt, again, it is tough because it's not going to get any better from this. The book's been written on him. He's very explosive. He's very powerful. He moves extremely well for heavyweight for 2.5, maybe 245 of that first round. And then shit after that, man, it goes off a cliff hard. And this is the same thing. So could he have knocked out Tybura in the first round? Yes. That's how he wins all of his fights. He's got 3 minutes to operate with. He's got to go out. He's got to get it. Can Tybura get knocked out in the first round? Yes. We've seen it happen before. He was questionably chinny in the past. And Greg Hardy put a beating on him. Didn't put a beating on him in the sense that, had him this close to getting knocked out, but was hitting him at will and did hurt him. So Walt will have those opportunities. Fight starts, and Tybura is a top ticket play for us here. He was on the second level, but if we want to have a profitable night, we want to win some money. We don't want it coming down to fucking Sakai. Tybura is essential. We got Woodson. We got a no contest on the Mason Jones shit. That was a killer for me personally, but whatever we can do. Mano Fioro, fine. We really need Marcin Tybura to come here. The odds are pretty decent on him. Let's go get it. And Walt just puts up. It's a sweat, dude. It was a sweat in the Greg Hardy fight, and he comes back and gets it done. And it was a sweat here too. Like, Walt came out and Walt put it on him. And I'm yelling at the TV in a very incoherent manner because we're at the co-main event by this point. But it's like, Marcin, shoot the takedown. Because he's bum rushing, right? Like, Walt's bum rushing in combinations. Like, duck under, and you got to take him down or he's going to knock you out. But Walt takes the foot off the gas for 1 second. Like, he starts with the barrage. And then right in that moment, around the 3-minute mark, it's like he was looking to just pot shot after that. And so Marcin just backs him up, takes him down. The second that fight hit the ground, she was over. He just started putting the beating on him. Walt looked exactly the same against Overeem. It's like Overeem has a ground game, but he does not. I don't think you would classify Alistair Overeem as one of the biggest ground specialists in the heavyweight division. But once he got on Walt Harris and flattened him out, like, Walt doesn't have hips. Like, he's a good striker. He's got good mobility. Clearly, he spends a lot of his time. This guy, honestly, like, I hate to say it, but if the UFC is going to release him, I don't know if they will. They might feel they owe him one, even though they've been doing him no favors. But, like, go bare knuckle box, dude. Go do that. The rounds are 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Bare knuckle. Terrible athletes. You're telling me you can't go hit Joey Beltran? I guess Joey Beltran's got such a good chin that maybe he'd take it, and then you'd have a problem because Walt Harris would guess. But, like, MMA is not for him, man. It's not for him. No doubt he could knock out anybody in the world. The thing is, the better the guys that you fight, the opportunity is just less and less. All of a sudden, you have a 5% chance turns to a 2% chance, turns to a 1% chance, turns into just you're coming out here for a puncher's chance. He had a puncher's chance here. He tried to execute his puncher's chance, and good on Tyboro. Tyboro's just a thing. He's the only guy in the UFC I see do it. He'll block by like, he'll do this. You know, I'm thinking like, what's that? Like, if you get hit, maybe that's going to stop the knockout blow. Like, really not sure. But the shit worked, right? It worked against Greg Hardy. Apparently worked again last night. So I'll take it. Marcin Tyboro getting the job done. That moves us to the main event. Now, I want to clarify something. If you're watching the recap, I feel like you're more invested in the like me more than just like pre-fight picks. A lot of people did just watch the show, or they might just go on Twitter and they'll show shit. I don't know why I always have to explain myself, but I really like having action on the main event in the top ticket for the sole purpose that you can hedge. It's a lot. Doesn't matter what side you take. It's the last fight of the night. So think about your parlays. Your parlays build to the last fight of the night. The last fight, now you can look at what's the expression? Don't count the chickens before the eggs hatch, right? So at this point, you know what the eggs are. You know in your head. I had 3 tickets sitting, 3 of the parlays. We got stage 1, 2, and 3. The Mason Jones thing did effectively cut it down to like a 4-1. Wasn't as good as the 750 it should have been, but we still got 3 tickets in play. So you know exactly how much money you are going to win if Augusto Sakai wins. He's a heavyweight. He's fighting a guy with the death touch. It's a sloppy fight. He's coming off a loss. They're both coming off losses. This is a fight nobody asked for, and certainly nobody asked for it to be 5 rounds. Because Sakai clearly showed in his last fight against Overeem, he couldn't fight beyond 3. That's not a let it ride. If you want to let it ride, that's your choice. But if you want to build bankroll and be smart, you take your hedge. I do this all the time. Sorry to say it. If I get to the end, if I'm looking at making $100, I let it ride. If I'm looking at making a couple $100, you let it ride. You're making a unit, you let it ride. If you're looking at having 3 tickets, even more. Let's say it's a PRP. Okay, let's say the 13 fights. We had a magical night. Everything was hitting. The stars were aligning for us. It's 13 straight. It culminates. The main event is on the last ticket. You haven't made a cent until the main event. But by the time we get to the main event, we hedge because we know the numbers at this point. So I took the hedge. And even though getting in the bag at this point, my brain at least still made the right call because that first round sucked, man. Nothing happened. It's classic Rozenstruik. He's not doing anything. Quite literally, this is the book that has been written on. I mean, last fight was Cyril gone. The Overeem fight where he waits basically 4 rounds to get going. The junior fight, he did not go in the second, but the first round, he more or less took off. And this round, he also takes off. He's winning it. He's winning it on the basis of Augusto Sakai also does nothing. But nothing's happening. And then, like 3 seconds left. He lands a shot, drops him, stop with the second left. He actually does stiffen up. Even I can remember that. He got hit twice. He stiffens. Herb makes the right call. Herb jumps in. Even though there's 1 second on the clock, and I could see people being like, oh, man, 1 second. He was hurt. And then when you saw his eye, like he got busted. And that's where the death touch comes into play. So Rozenstruik doesn't let his hands go very often. He's not the most exciting guy in the world until the highlight reel finish. But if he hits you, my God. And it's more than just the knockout. It's more than just he hits you and you're flatline. He hit Reem the one time, floors him, and his lip is just, you've never seen a lip injury like that. That Sakai fight, man, he hit him the one time. He floored a guy that had some notorious durability, trained at American Top Team with some of the best guys in the world, was more than prepared, showed up on the scales looking physically in excellent shape. He hit him the one time. He completely floored him. The ground and pound was nasty too. But the damage on the face, man, it's like shit. So with Rozenstruik, whoever signs on the dotted line to fight him, better mind his P's and Q's. And whereas Walt Harris has got 3 minutes to operate with, Rozenstruik's quite the opposite. See, Walt comes at you for 3 minutes, throws a barrage, gets in your face, mixes it up, totally gassed out. Rozenstruik don't do that. Rozenstruik hangs. He's a counterpuncher. The whole time there, that's why nothing's happening. He's waiting for Sakai to engage him. Sakai's not doing that. So then he's throwing one single shot at a time to try to get Sakai to counter the single shot so that he can re-counter that counter. I know, but it's not happening because now the guy's letting their hands go. Clearly, Sakai respects Rozenstruik. Who would? I'm sure he respects Sakai, but he's also not looking to go out and engage really hard for the first 3 minutes. He's just looking to wait because he knows if I hit you, you're done. And the difference between Walt, huge power, like I said, could knock out anybody. The difference between him and Rozenstruik is Walt hit Overeem and hurt him, but couldn't put him away. He hit Tyboro and hurt him, but couldn't put him away. Is Rozenstruik lands that same shot, it just seems like not only do you topple over, but your face just blows up like a hand grenade, man. Like, whack. Whoever fights him next, scary proposition. As for Sakai, like, yeah, it's heavyweight. He's definitely got a job within the company and just, yeah, moving back down the ranks. You know, he'll fight another, hopefully, primary striker type guy. He can have some fun fights. I think a guy like Volkov would be way too ahead of him. A guy like Curtis probably ragdolls him to the ground, takes him to deeper waters. Him versus Derek Lewis would be one hell of a fun fight, but Lewis looks like he'll get the next title shot, so you'll have to sit on it. But you know what? It's heavyweight, and he's a fun enough heavyweight. He'll factor in with some other guys. This was not a great performance from him, but he's only, 30 years old, very young for this weight class still, and I figured to make some improvements, sure, but I think the dream of him being an elite level guy and fighting for the title appears to be, certainly for the time being, in the rearview mirror. That's about it. I don't know if I should do a recap for Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather. I know that fight is later on today, and obviously we'll be watching it, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to see if it warrants something like a recap. But if you need a recap, if you want anything, if you want to shoot the shit, if you've got any questions, comments, or concerns, or you feel differently about any of these fights, hit it up in the comment section or hit me up on Twitter. Always appreciate the follows. Always appreciate anybody who liked the show and subscribe. You guys have really just been, awesome guys. I really do appreciate the support. And yeah, another card in the books. Not the ideal result, but ended up being a profitable weekend all in all. So you take that profit and you go to the next one. It's a marathon of a season, not a sprint. So we'll get there all in due time. So thanks again, and